Om Jnana Timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So today is the last session, obviously, of this seminar. We have to be out of here sharp at 5:45 because there's another meeting scheduled. I'd be interested to get some feedback if devotees would like to write something, give your impressions, because it's an experimental kind of seminar. Like I said, it's a vaccination. You're all guinea pigs.
There's no mic?
There's a mic, but there's no cord. There's a mic and there's an amplifier, but there's no cord. So it is a very sensitive. We're touching on sensitive topics, as Bhakti Philip was saying, as I was discussing with him this afternoon, that if we wanted to get into the details, we'd probably walk out of here also disturbed. But actually, you will find there are a certain class of devotees who they spend probably their whole lives talking about all these kind of things and complaining about all these kind of things, and they like to hear about these miserable kind of things. People who are interested in becoming Krishna conscious don't like to spend all their time talking about all the what's. That means literally means like, how to explain a what? It's an unsightly growth on the body. It could be that someone's body is basically quite healthy, but it has some little warts or scabs here or there. So I'm not like that actually. I mean, you might think from I'm doing this seminar that I just like to talk. Well, this is bad and that's wrong. Actually, I don't like to talk like that at all, because what's the use? When people come to me with saying this kind of thing, I say, all right, okay, there's a problem. What are you going to do about it? If you're not prepared to do something about it, then you are part of the problem. Again, the very good words that Suresh Prabhu gave me at the beginning of this seminar. Am I part of the problem or part of the solution? We're all part of the problem, because we're all part of this movement, and the problems this movement have, we are part of this movement. So it's just like in a family, although the very concept of family it's like something out of a fairy tale book nowadays, but in a family, the problem of one is the problem of all. It's a shared problem. So whether who or what is the cause of the problem, we all share in it. Just like if there's bad publicity of ISKCON, which it comes out in the press from time to time, then people ask, what about this, what about that? It's implied that people presume that we're all part of the problem. So it's whatever problems are there, they're shared, and we're also part of the solution. So ultimate solution is to become Krishna conscious. But again, if you really care so much, if you're talking, there's this problem and that problem, just like Bhakti Philip was telling me that someone had told him that there's leakage of funds in Mayapur, and he was talking about fantastic figures, which, crores of rupees, which I said, well, I don't believe that, because crores of rupees, people who are giving crores of rupees, they know how to make it, and they're not so stupid that they're going to give it and it's just going to get funneled away. They want to see how it's controlled. So I put it back to Bhakti Philip sitting over here, that you go to that person, tell him to make a report, give names, give his name, and I'll take it up. I'll take it to the concerned authorities. And if he's not prepared to do that, then he's simply a gossip. He's simply fomenting bad thoughts in people's heads, and he's not actually concerned with solving the problem, if it even exists to the extent that it does. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if there is some leakage of funds. Definitely, that's another area our movement is quite weak in, is financial or economic transparency. And if there's weakness there, then you can practically be sure that if there's no one checking exactly where all the money is going, then some may be going out in not the most Krishna conscious of ways. to put it euphemistically. But if we're concerned to solve the problem, if we're actually serious and we actually want an improvement, then we don't just gossip. We should try to do something. So try to do something. There are various ways to do things. One thing is to set a good example yourself. Actually, I had an idea after speaking with you this afternoon, and I'm going to float this among the leaders of our society, that it would be a very, actually, as a public organization, the accounts of our society, of the individuals, I'm not exactly sure what the laws are, but I would imagine that by law, each individual center or the whole society in each country, registered in each country, or in America, according to Prabhupada's instruction, it's registered in each state or city or whatever. Because it's a public society which accepts public funds to perform their activities, then presumably a member of the public should be able to go at any time and request for a statement of accounts. So apart from that being there, that it should be open, I'm going to float the idea among our leaders that the accounts are published each month of each center. You can send it out to the life members along with your newsletter, or put it on the internet so that people can see. And that financial transparency will create a lot of faith in our movement. That here are the accounts. Also, will create faith, and if there are excesses, then they'll be exposed also. Of course, anyone can cook the accounts, as the saying goes. But then, that's why in the governments they have auditing systems. So Philip was asking about this, and I was telling him that actually in our movement in the year, actually the initiative started in the year 2002, but it's just coming into shape in the year 2003 after 28 years of our movement, that actually internal auditing is about to become a reality in ISKCON India. That means we're going to hire professional auditors, not have devotees do it, but professional auditors, people whose career is based on, you know what this auditing means? He goes, you go in and check the accounts, You go and check the accounts and you see that there's no hanky-panky going on. And if there is, you have to report it to the government. The accounts are clear, the income is as stated, the expenditure is as stated, and especially in charitable organizations, that the expenditure, how it's being spent, it's actually being spent for charitable purposes rather than for the sense gratification of the people who are supposed to be running the charity. So it is, our movement is a slow moving. We don't believe in machinery, right? So everything goes very slowly, it's like cranking up. Everything tends to move very slowly, but it is happening. Moves are there. Again, this morning I was sitting on the Vyasa couch, as Sridhar Maharaj called it. There were two of us sitting. There was a big Vyasa. So he was talking about the big temple, and I mentioned this to him, that after the class I said that, look, there's reports of leakage going on here, and he said, yeah, we got to clean that up before we even start our fund collecting campaign. He told me that Ambarish Prabhu, who's the major donor, he's very insistent. He's not going to give unless he knows that money's going to go where it's going to go. He's not a multi-millionaire, billionaire, whatever. He's not so foolish that he's going to give money to put ghee on the rice of some corrupt villagers who come and steal all the funds. Yes, there are problems, and our movement, Prabhupada said it should run on love and trust. So in many cases the trust is all right, but there should be some checks and balances also. And if there aren't proper checks and balances, then the tendency is that if someone's not a completely pure devotee, then the tendency may be that if plenty of money is coming, that some may go 90% for Krishna, 10% for me, then 80% for Krishna, 20% for me, and then eventually 10% for Krishna and 90% for me, and then you get kicked out from the town president post, and anyway you have plenty of money stashed away. So these things are not unknown to happen. Another thing which the auditing will be very useful for is that, apart from out and out corruption, it may happen that a devotee is more or less sincere in doing his job, but he succumbs to temptation. But it may also be that a devotee is doing the job as temple president, and he's has the motive to serve Krishna, but he's maybe a little overly generous in extending the principle of yukta vairagya. Yukta vairagya means that we can use the facilities which Krishna has provided to provide for our needs. But there may be a tendency to live an unnecessarily opulent life in the name of serving Krishna. So these tendencies should be checked. At the same time, if we see, most of our town presidents are householders, and householders have certain needs which brahmacharis can never understand unless and until they become married. So, or sometimes they start practicing when they're in the brahmachari ashram also. They're not supposed to do that. Living an opulent life in the name of brahmachari life. So, grihastas have certain needs, and the tendency of householder life, the tendency is that the needs, especially in the modern consumer society, the tendency is that the needs expand, and there's no end to them. And there's also the consideration of, apart from what are considered the household needs or the physical needs, among householders there are social needs. In other words, it's not enough simply to drive a car, but you should have a car at least as good as every other family on the block. Or you should have a car at least as good as your brother's car, or according to your parents' expectations for you. Your parents expected you to be earning $200,000 a year, so it's not good enough if you're just driving a Toyota Corolla. You should be driving some fancy Chevrolet or something like this. So there are social needs. There's no actual need to have a fancy car, but there are social needs. And so householders, they may feel this, and they may also be some of them are expert in producing funds, they're good in doing business, and they feel that, yes, I should have a car because I'm moving in this level of society, and others say, no, you shouldn't have this kind of car, you're living too opulently. So exactly what it means to be too opulent, that also may be difficult to define. But definitely our movement has been slow in extending to love and trust checks and balances. The trust has extended to virtual blanket trust, that you can. A temple president is practically, he's practically like a god in his own area. He can do whatever he likes, and no one can check him. It's practically like that. So that we find in any area, if the leader is very Krishna conscious and very dedicated, then things tend to develop, and if not. So a lot depends on the local leadership, and usually when someone's in a leadership position, they're usually there, and as long as they don't grossly break the regulated principles or any such thing, they'll go on. So, what are the solutions to all these? Time, that may be one thing. Revolutions are not much in order. They don't usually work. I've seen various revolutions. Devotees have said, we got to throw this guy, I got to throw it out, get him out, and they throw them out, and then usually what happens is that no one, after the leader who's thrown out, they're out, and then whoever comes in, no one has any faith in them because they don't have any faith in any leader, and they can't lead, and the whole thing just kind of collapses. So I've seen in various places where leaders, there were certain problems, but at the same time things were going on. Even there were problems, but there was a good side also, and then there's a big revolution, and then everything's jai, we won the revolution, and then within a short time the whole thing collapses, and there's neither bad things going on nor good things going on. There's practically nothing going on. So we should be very careful about making revolutions, but at the same time we should see what we can try to do to improve things. It may be in many cases in a local area, if you're in a situation where everything's thriving and going on nicely, you're lucky. Take advantage of it. If you're not, well, you can also very tactfully try to, you can work with the temple authorities to try to improve things. Sometimes temple authorities are difficult to work with, and sometimes they're content just to keep things as they are. Danavir Maharaj is telling me in America that he's getting lots of nice, new, young recruits, because when they come to their local temple to join, they say, go to Danavir Maharaj. Because, we don't want to look after new people. It's too much trouble, looking after them. And things are going on. We have our staff, and it's enough, and the donors are... in many temples, they're just interested in, if the status quo is going on, the regular festivals are going on, the Sunday programs are going on, and they don't want to expand things. They're more interested in maintaining donors than they are in making new devotees. So that may be one thing. But if you're in such a situation, you can try. Actually, the congregational devotees in such a situation, they can do more to improve the situation than devotees living in the temple, because they have some freedom, and they can organize. Again, it's definitely best not to try to oppose the authority structure. In general, I'm not, unless there's really something very wrong. We see that Prabhupada, he was actually very much upholding of authority systems. It goes against the grain of modern society, and especially probably of our generation. It was I don't know about the younger generation. I'm sorry, I really am a dinosaur. I don't know about the young people, what they're like in the 80s or the 90s or the what's the present, the zeros, or what do you call this, the beginning of the 21st century, because I've been out of the Western world since 1977, so I still don't know what punk music is. I know I've heard the term, but if someone played it, I wouldn't know that this is punk music, so I'm really out of date. So, we should try to act to improve things. Actually, how to do that exactly? Well, if we're serious, we're sincere, and we take good association, Krishna will give us intelligence. And it may be improve things means improving in hearing and chanting and service attitude. So often the best thing may be not so much to try to make some revolution, kick this guy out or this or that, but just to sit together with devotees and hear and chant, and then invite others to come, and then go out on Harinam and go and distribute some books, and in this way things will improve. Slow, it may be a slow process. That's more like the mode of goodness. The mode of passion is explosion, which is usually followed by the mode of ignorance, implosion. That's explosion. Implosion means everything just collapses. And the mode of goodness, then we gradually, that Shanai Shanai Uparamed Buddhya Dritya Grihitaya. Krishna states in Bhagavad Gita that gradually, with intelligence and determination, one should improve in yoga practice. So it may be a drawn-out process. There's a saying in mundane academics talking about how scientific theories, they become replaced. That what happens, there's a certain scientific paradigm which is in vogue and everyone believes this is true. And then another scientist comes along and refutes that. But the old paradigm which is refuted, scientifically it's finished. It goes on being taught for quite some time. For how long? Until all the old professors who are brought up with that die out. And then the new generation come up. And then, because people are attached to a certain way of thinking. And even though they're supposed to be scientists, even though their theory's been proven wrong, they believe in it. So it may be that people, they're in a certain groove or a certain way of thinking or acting, but a next generation can come up. One devotee was telling me yesterday how in the area he lives in, the Bhakti leader, he's a very thoughtful and sattvic devotee. Of course, we're talking about generalizations here, but the leadership is, they're not so thoughtful. It's just, bring people in, shave them up, send them out on the street, distribute books, and never get married. And even if you get married, you should just not have children and just surrender to the temple authorities. And the only way to be Krishna conscious is just surrender to the temple authorities. That's all you have to do. But not very thoughtful about people get married and they need to have children and they need to have an income and so many things like that. So the Bhakti leader, he's not opposing this, but he's just training up the new devotees without opposing the temple authorities. He's just training up the new generation of devotees to be very, very thoughtful and to understand things according to Shastra. And he's training them up in such a way that he doesn't train them that you just have to follow me. But of course the authority is there, but you should follow and be thoughtful. As Prabhupada said, independently thoughtful person. So the Bhakti leader is confident that, even though the present generation of devotees, they're probably going to get burned out, according to ISKCON lingo, but another generation will come, will be more thoughtful, and they won't just accept that just you have to do what I say because I say. They may go along with they'll be respectful to authorities because they're trained like that, but at the same time they're trained to understand in terms of Bhagavad Gita, what is the mode of goodness, what is the mode of passion, what is the mode of ignorance. Now, another thing, I was speaking with some time ago with one devotee who told me that he just finished reading a book called The Bad Popes. It was a historical work about the Catholic Church. So, you don't have to read this book. I'm not recommending you read it. He read it, so he got the message out of it, and he told me, and I'm telling you. So, the gist, or what he got out of it was that where in the Catholic Church things prospered in a spiritual way, as spiritual as you could hope from the Catholic Church. But definitely, there are certain areas which are more religious and godly and spiritual minded than others. So certain popes were just like completely corrupt and lecherous, and politicians and lecherous, what this means? That means they're running after the nuns. So So during that period when the bad popes were in, then the Catholic Church was a mess. And then when there were more thoughtful and spiritually minded and sincere popes, then things went nicely. So he said that in certain areas of our movement, I'm thinking that it's just a matter of time, that in course of time, the devotees who are there, they're there, Krishna sent them there with a certain purpose, and in course of time Krishna will send others, and then things will prosper. So that was his lookout, that was his view on that situation. So patience is one thing. Patience is one thing, but also, like I said, we can act. Just like if you're a congregational member, you are no doubt legally entitled to ask for the accounts. You can do that. If you think that, if you suspect that there's imbalance in the way funds are being used, you can act. If you don't have to, don't. If everything's going on nicely, then chant, dance, be happy, and become Krishna conscious. But if there are problems, as there will be from time to time in certain places in a big worldwide movement which is trying to spread Krishna consciousness all over the world, then one can also act to try to improve things in various ways. Now, I want to relate something else. Hari Shari Prabhu, a few years ago, he related a dream that one of our godbrothers had had. And as he said at that time, and I'll repeat the same mood, I'll repeat the same sentiment, that dreams, so many people say, I had this dream and that dream, and we don't necessarily take dreams very seriously, but it's like that Prabhupada said, one good eye and one bad eye. Even if Prabhupada didn't say it, even if he didn't say it, it's a good saying which we can take advantage of. We can incorporate it into our understanding of life. So according to this dream, one devotee was complaining to Srila Prabhupada about, in our movement, this is wrong, and that's wrong, and something else is wrong, and that's wrong, and this is wrong, and blah, 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 blah. Then Prabhupada in the dream showed him like a panoramic view of not of realities of ISKCON today, but realities of the world today. Prabhupada showed him a whole picture of how people are sinful, they're misguided, they're going to hell, they're suffering. Prabhupada showed this to him, and then Prabhupada turned to the devotee and said, just try to do something to help them. So Prabhupada's focus, even though Prabhupada knew there were various problems, his focus was on the problems are there, they're going to be there, we have to try to solve them, but at the same time we can't stop our missionary activities because there's this problem or that problem or what other problem. So many times devotees come to me, and apart from all what we're talking about, these institutional problems, they're talking about, I have a problem, what are the basic problems? Lust is the usual one, or, I can't get on with my family members, or, I have the legal problems, this problem, that problem, the other. I can't seem to make any advancement, I can't concentrate when I'm chanting my rounds, ever heard that one? So, there's so many problems like this, but when devotees come, I usually tell them, look, whatever problems you've got, whatever it may be, your problems are not as great as those of people who are not in Krishna consciousness, who have not come to this movement, who have not had the opportunity to take to Krishna consciousness. It's a gift. Thank you very much, Gauranga Prem Maharaj, for kindly giving me a gift of a Maniha Gamcha. So, you have some lusty desire, or we have some lusty desires, or we can't chant our rounds, probably whatever. But okay, but we're chanting Hare Krishna. We've got the means to get free from birth and death. We've got the means to go to Krishna. What about the people who don't? Whatever our problems may be, they're not nearly as great as those who have not taken to Krishna consciousness. It's like, 50 people have been lined up to to be shot, and someone comes up and complains, I stubbed my toe. Oh, take notice. I stubbed my toe, and there's 50 people getting lined up to be shot. Our problem is not as, whatever our so-called problems may be. Those who are not in Krishna consciousness are much greater problems. So we should try to do something to help them. And why we want to improve this ISKCON mission? Well, because it's Prabhupada's movement. We want to uphold Prabhupada's movement. We feel ourselves part of it. But we also want this movement to be as properly functional as possible to do its job of helping the whole world, everyone in the world, to become Krishna conscious. We want that when people come to our centers, that they'll be so impressed by the transcendental atmosphere that they'll feel, now I come home. After many millions of lifetimes wandering in this material world, now this is where I belong. So that it requires a constant endeavor to make our centers and our devotees on the spiritual platform. Prabhupada was so insistent. Everyone has to rise early, attend the temple programs, be fully engaged in Krishna consciousness, the Vaikuntha atmosphere. And if that is there, then there's no reason why this Krishna conscious movement can't spread tremendously. Actually, this movement, Prabhupada said so many times, this movement is supposed to take over the world with Krishna consciousness. And at the present time, practically throughout the world, the field for preaching Krishna consciousness is so good. Anywhere you go, in the West, in India, in some places it may be pretty tough. I'm told in Kerala it's pretty tough, and I don't know, in Taiwan it's, who's that? But even they were saying now people are they're becoming more and more open to that. Thailand, I was there for some time, that was tough. But it's getting better. They're making it. Anywhere where we preach, things improve. This movement has its effectiveness. It does work. By distributing these books, how it happens, Krishna knows. But by distributing these books, the whole atmosphere becomes purified and people become more and more favorable to Krishna consciousness. By distributing books, by holding festivals, by having Harinams, the whole things change and people become more and more ready to take to Krishna consciousness. So actually the preaching field is very good, especially as people all over the world are suffering more and more and more and realizing it. And Prabhupada states that in a purport in Chaitanya Charitamrita, that the more the Krishna conscious movement is spread, the more the seeds of material enjoyment dry up. The people, they become, the atmosphere changes, that people become hopeless about enjoying this material world. That means they become prepared for taking to Krishna consciousness. But often what happens is like these bogus gurus come in and they mislead people. So, but we have tremendous scope for spreading Krishna consciousness. Tremendous. Prabhupada used to talk about making devotees in the millions, and it's possible in the East and in the West, everywhere. If any devotee, if they have some what's the word? Spunk. What's an ordinary English word for that? Life. Yeah, that's a good word. Prana cheja she hetu prachar. Who has got life he can preach. If anyone has faith, conviction in Krishna consciousness, and they transmit that to others, people will come and they can take it up. But we have to keep first of all, we have to have a vision of what our mission is. Our mission is not simply, like I said, to go once a week or so and have a social party. That is not Krishna consciousness. This movement, it has to be more vital, more dynamic, more alive than the Karmis. The Karmis are working hard. They're working hard to maintain their illusion. So devotees have to work harder devotee means 24 hours a day. We're thinking how to serve Krishna and how to spread this movement. We can flourish as a mission if we know what our mission is and if we apply ourselves to that. So where does that begin? That begins with preaching, Every Brahmin, especially Brahmin initiate means, should be a preacher, should be a first-class example and inspiring others. Everyone should do so. We have a lot of work to do. We have a lot of work to do. If there's any one living being that leaves his body without having taken some prasadam or heard the name of Krishna, then that we should consider that is a disaster. So there's so many ahani bhutani ganchanti hayamalayam. Every day so many people are going, they're leaving their bodies and going to Yamaraj because they didn't get the nectar of Krishna consciousness, they didn't get Prabhupada's books, they didn't hear the Harinam, they didn't come to Mayapur. So we are so fortunate, but we have to make others fortunate. Prabhupada had so many plans. Now again this is a very good sign that we're becoming confident and enthusiastic to build this big temple. It's not going to go just by going Jai. We have to say Jai, but and it's not just by money either. Actually, the money is not the main factor. We're talking about millions, I don't know, maybe billions of dollars to build this big temple. But that money will come practically automatically. Not that we'll just sit under a tree and it will rain down. We have to do something. We have to become instruments in coming in. But if we're actually serious to serve Krishna and serve the Parampara, and we're very seriously cooperating with the mission to give ourselves selflessly to serve Krishna, then this temple will manifest automatically. That's why I was saying it's a test of how much Prabhupada's mercy is with us. That this temple will be built. Of course, again, it's not a one day's job. Even if all the money was brought right now, still you wouldn't build it. It would take quite some time. These big cathedrals in the West, some of them took over 100 years to build. So it will take some time. But this is that we're thinking about it, that we're talking about it, and that we're moving towards it. That means that our movement is alive to take up the challenge. Because if we were just resigned to being a mediocre, another religion, if we were just simply content to be just another so-called religion, then we wouldn't be thinking of doing this stupendous thing, building this temple. Prabhupada said that who helps in building this temple, Bhakti Thakur will take them back to Godhead. That means that we have to become so Krishna conscious to build this temple. We're going to have to cooperate so much. We're going to have to pray so much. And when that is built, just like Sridhar Maharaj was saying, that people will come and they'll see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and they'll faint in ecstasy. Whoever saw Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that's described in Chaitanya Charitamrita, they would immediately become Krishna conscious. That's already happening in Mayapur. That already happens so many times. People come to Mayapur and they just completely change. There are many, many, many instances. Their whole life changes. They don't come to Mayapur because they have faith in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. There's so many instances. There's one young man from South India. He ran away from home to Mayapur. And then his parents, who had been against his Krishna consciousness and eating meat and so many things, they came chasing after him. They came to Mayapur and they went back chanting 16 rounds. It has just like Suresh Prabhu was saying, has it 25 years since you came to Mayapur? And at that time, I think the long building was there. So there was this building, which doesn't mean that building. This was the temple. Where this Diorama Museum and Prabhupada's Vyasasana is, that was the temple at the time. And then after that, this long building came up. And then all these other things have come since, and all these other devotees have come since. And it's amazing. We see how much this is developing. It means that these buildings are coming up. And some is just, it's just a mundane institution, buildings, but these buildings these are bricks in Vaikuntha actually. They're not just ordinary bricks. Anyone can build a building. But to build this center means it is built, again, it's not just bricks and cement, but it's built by Krishna consciousness. And if the blessings of the acharyas are there, it will develop. And if it's not, then it won't develop. So we have to keep our missionary spirit very strong. We have to understand that whatever the problems may be, again, the foam and mud, it's there. Try to... Actually, we can't purify. It's offensive to think that we should purify the Ganga. We can purify the Ganga because the Ganga purifies us. But at the same time, the foam and the mud, if it's too much, then you could... If there's too much pollution or extraneous things in the Ganga, then maybe we should do something to try to... A certain amount that's expected. If there's excess, then we should try to do something about it, to clean it up. But at the same time, we have to understand that this movement, we can take advantage of ourselves to become purified, and we really have to do something for the mission of Prabhupada and the Acharyas. We have a lot of work to do. We have to dedicate ourselves to that. We have to dedicate ourselves to spreading this movement. Everyone is expected to do so. Everyone is a missionary. Whatever we're doing, everyone has to preach Krishna consciousness. Either whatever situation you're in, if you're working 6 days a week to make a living, well, I mean, Jarideko Tarikoha, you can try to preach to your workmates somehow. It may be difficult. How can you preach in your office? Well, if you're in an office, you could put pictures of Krishna in the office, and people may ask you, what's that about? And you can gradually introduce like that. You can give people prasadam. You can go out sometime every week distributing books. Everyone has to do something to try to push on this movement. The only thing stopping our movement from taking over the world is our own incompetency, and personal interest is also there. When we're not fully dedicated, when we mix personal interest with, that means personal self-interested in terms of aham mameti, I, me and mine, in not our real self-interest, natei vidu swartagatim hi Vishnu. Our real personal interest is to serve Krishna. But if we think of our self-interest as something different than serving Krishna, and we take this movement to be a vehicle for fulfilling our self-interest, then the force or the life of this movement becomes dampened. So we should really all endeavor to be pure devotees. And again, pure devotee doesn't mean just someone who holds a flower and smiles. Prabhupada was idealistic and pragmatic also. He pushed on this Krishna conscious movement. He wasn't, even when there were very big problems, he didn't get discouraged, he kept on pushing, but he dealt with them also. So we should also try to do that in whatever capacity we can. We have to see what our capacity is. We should keep good association, keep confident, and have faith that Prabhupada's movement will go on, it will develop, and we all have everyone has an important role to play in that. So Prabhupada said, purity is the force, begins with ourselves. At the same time, it's a Sankirtan movement. We're all in this together, so we all have to try to help each other to become purified. We can help each other deal with difficult situations. We also shouldn't blow things out of proportion. Oh, another very important, it sounds like I'm finalizing, I'm summarizing, but there is one very important thing which I should have said before, but I didn't, so I'll say it now, is that we should also be, just like Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says in Chaitanya Charitamrita, one should not get caught up in the whirlpools of what's he called, speculative arguments and useless talk. Because if you do so, your Krishna consciousness will be ruined. So, just like for instance, there are some things which some people may attack you with, accost you with. Just like poison theory. The theory that, this is one example, Prabhupada was poisoned by his servants, particularly, who are the main accused persons? Tamal Krishnaraj is one of them, and some others. So, another one that the Prabhupada's books are being changed. So these are two prominent theories which people who want to promote that actually the leaders of ISKCON are all totally corrupt. So you could get into discussing all things. Actually, I never did. I must admit, if someone said to me, have you, how do you know that Prabhupada wasn't poisoned? Have you studied the whole issue? Actually, I haven't. I must admit. And I'm sure if you were accosted by someone and you listened to all they said, they could present what seems to be a very plausible case that Prabhupada was poisoned. Isn't it a horrible thing? I mean, it's a really... I must admit, I didn't listen to all their arguments. And actually there is a book which is on sale here, which the GB, someone had to go to all the trouble of writing a book to show that there is a plausible case to show also that, what they say is not necessarily true. But personally, I didn't really get into it because, what can I say? It's just my gut feeling that, many people had, let's be honest, many people, as Jayadvaita Maharaj said, the day after Tamal Krishna Maharaj passed away, that he said that I know Tamal Krishna Maharaj would, he would appreciate me saying this, or he wouldn't mind me saying this, that never has a person been so much respect and so much loved by so many people who totally disagreed with him. So, no doubt he was a controversial figure in our movement, but poison Prabhupada, it's just too ridiculous. So, and even the thing that you'll find in the Prabhupada conversations, which I read years before this came out, when Prabhupada said, they have given me poison, something like this. He was talking about the medicine they'd given. So they published it, Prabhupada said so many things. One time Prabhupada said, Tamal Krishna Goswami is not a Vaishnava. And some people, they promote this. You see, Prabhupada said. So Prabhupada said some very heavy things, but he called sometimes his disciples rascals, fools, nonsense, and so many things. I don't know if Prabhupada actually said that. There's a report that he said that, but you don't take that as the whole siddhanta. That yes, Prabhupada said, and then all the other things he said that we called Tamal Krishna Maharaj so many times when he had problems. He called him to be by his side at the light. He trusted him. He has confidence in him more than anything else. And someone who you're very close to, sometimes you may, especially a guru, may call a rascal, a fool, a nonsense. But then if you take it that you see this is what Prabhupada really thinks about him, then you are a rascal, a fool, and a nonsense. So I didn't investigate all these things, but I heard, they said that, Prabhupada had this much arsenic, and this proves it. But then I heard that they said that our devotees, the real devotees, the ones I consider real devotees, they sent this to another expert who said that, well, I've got more arsenic in my hair than that, so I should be dead also, if that's what they say. In other words, their so-called proof, it's not proof at all. That's one thing. And then there's the changing books. They're changing Prabhupada's books. Great! I'm so glad that the Bhagavad Gita as it is changed, because the old edition said, for instance, that there is a planet of trees. And we have to distribute these books in India where people know something about Shastra, and where it says, Pitrinam Aryama Chasmi, among the Pitris, I am Aryama, the book, because the editor didn't know what a Pitri was, so when he heard Prabhupada say on the tape, there is a planet of the Pitris, I didn't know what a Pitri was, so he wrote there is a planet of the trees. And then later on, Jayadvaita Maharaj, being very intelligent and authorized by Prabhupada, changed it to what Prabhupada actually said, to Bhagavad Gita as it is, instead of what Hayagriva, who didn't know what it was, what his imagination is. And they're saying that, they changed Prabhupada's books. They're demoniac. But Prabhupada never said there's a planet of trees. And if you want to distribute that book, then it's a disservice to Prabhupada. But they'll come, you see, they're changing Prabhupada's books. These people are crazy. So, don't get caught up in these controls. If you go into it, then you can argue this side and that side, and these people are demons, and this is wrong. And it's just, don't waste your time. You've got better things. We should read Bhagavad Gita as it is. Better to read the edited edition. You can become fully Krishna conscious by reading the edition with the planet of the trees. because it doesn't affect the philosophy, but it's a technical point which is incorrect, and Prabhupada never said it, because Prabhupada isn't as stupid as you idiot, that you think there is a planet. You see, Prabhupada said it, there must be a planet of the trees, because Prabhupada said it, but he didn't say it. So don't get caught up in these ridiculous controversies, which won't improve your spiritual life, and is likely to get you involved in Vaishnava Parad. Be intelligent. Being intelligent means that we should see where there's something which is not correct. But to see that something is incorrect when it's actually not incorrect, then that's not intelligent, that's damn stupid. So don't, in the name of being intelligent, don't be over-intelligent. And naturally, when this poisoning things, or God, who knows what next thing they'll invent? Who knows what wonderful imaginative theories people are going to come up with next? That they're building the big temple, but actually, what they're really doing, they're making it's a disguised launching pad for nuclear missiles. You never know, if they can come up with poison theory, anything's possible. So you see, they don't allow people into the deity room. That means, you see, that's the proof that actually it's a top secret chemical weapons go down. So you never know, people better, maybe they'll say that now, you don't know. So be intelligent, don't be overly intelligent, chant Hare Krishna, and go back to Godhead. And problems are there, what exactly, how to solve this, that and the other, that we'll have to see. But whatever happens, go on chanting Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. So, if anyone would like to, I'd like to get some feedback on this seminar, especially when devotees were there for all the 4 days, because it is sensitive, like I say, it's an attempted inoculation. An inoculation may be a little painful, but it's not as bad as getting the disease. And we're all faced with all these. Our movement is not as innocent as it was in the good old days. Of course, in our innocence, we were sometimes, like excesses came out of it. We're not as innocent, but we are more mature. So the innocence of childhood it's being replaced by the hopefully the wisdom of maturity. So if anyone would like to give any feedback, please write it down and give to me. What are your overall comments? And you don't have to sign your name. If you want to say, I hated it, whatever, please tell me why. No, I want frank feedback. I should have brought pens and papers, but I didn't. But Suresh Prabhu has, so maybe he could donate a few sheets of paper here and there to people who like to write. Sorry to put you on the spot there. I'll refund you if you like. Yeah, please. Why don't you give a seminar next year? Suresh Prabhu, he's one of the very unique speaker and writer. He has a wonderfully charming, uniquely charming style, which you don't know about because he hasn't revealed it yet. He used to write for Bhakti, but he's starting again now. Very unique and makes points in a manner which seems very light and humorous, but actually very deep and incisive. Unique, really.
The truest things are said in jest.
Yeah.
Today, one thing today you could say is, we want to look for conspiracy, we should look within. And that's where the real reform starts. It starts with our own hearts. So just before I came over here today, Maharaj, one fellow came to my door, and he wanted to know what was going on in Hawaii, where I'm serving.
Going on where?
In Hawaii.
Hawaii, yeah.
Can you get a mic? You better.
Well, no, I think you have to, this, is it going to, all right, it can go through. Okay, but then we have to disconnect this.
course of speaking with the devotee, I saw that he really didn't know what he wanted to do. So I began to ask him, what does he like to do? What is his passion? Does he have a passion in service? What's that activity doing which he loses time? So to me, a key thing for improving ourselves so we can improve ISKCON is to really understand ourselves.
Right, very good point.
What we really, who we are.
Yeah.
To thine own, but this above all, to thine own self be true, Shakespeare said. So the more we understand that, the more we can actually do something for Srila Prabhupada's mission. And we owe it to ourselves, to our fellow devotees, and to Prabhupada to really understand who we are so we can do something.
Try the mic back. Yeah, that was a very important point. There's one purport in which Prabhupada, he's talking about preaching, how every devotee should preach, but he says that not everyone can be Ramanujacharya and Madhvacharya. So, work within our capacity and work according to, just like preaching, it's not that everyone has to get up and sit on a big seat and become a great world acharya, but actually according to Shastra, the first guru is the mother. So mothers, they have a very important service to teach their children to be Krishna conscious, and parents, they're bringing up their children in Krishna conscious, and that's another big important area, the lack of proper family training in our home. We have a lot of social problems also, which I didn't really even touch on. Family life in Krishna conscious. What do we want to do? Then what can we do? If you can, what is your passion? Your music? There are different people preach in different ways. There's one very nice devotee I know who, he himself, he's not like a big philosopher, or he reads the books and this and that, but he likes to meet people and make friends with them. And when he does that, he brings them, after making friends with them, he brings them to devotees he knows who are very good at presenting Krishna consciousness to newcomers. So, like that. So see what you can do. It may take some time. Usually when we first come to the room, we're just trying to find out what Krishna consciousness is all about. That's when all the people, they already know what they're doing, what their life is. So, how to help frustrated devotees, frustrated due to institutional defects in ISKCON. The best thing is to make ISKCON, to show them a vibrant movement. Just like devotees may be frustrated, but if they're still interested in Krishna, they haven't completely gone away, which most don't go away because totally. So if they're frustrated because the temple spirit was lost, and if we can build up the temple spirit and then bring them and show them, then they'll again become enlivened. We see in so many cases. I see many devotees who, they're somewhat disgruntled, and they come to Mayapur, especially for the festival, and they become, in many cases, they just pick up their Krishna consciousness and go on with full enthusiasm and with more pragmatic discretion also. So we can also tell them that, whatever the problems may be, that if we're not able to, of course, lifting up the whole temple atmosphere, that requires a lot of input. It may not be such an easy thing to do. In some, it depends. Different people have different capacities. Some devotees are very charismatic and spiritually inspired, and they can just pick up a whole situation. Others, not everyone has the same capacity. But we can tell individual devotees that maybe whatever the problems of ISKCON may be, that Prabhupada, he didn't come to cheat us. He came to give us something very wonderful. And whatever others may do, they cannot take the gifts that Prabhupada gave to us, they cannot take that away from us. So we can still access them. We still have access to them. It is difficult. Prabhupada gave the example that China, once it's broken, it's very difficult to put it together again as it was before. Do you have some suggestion about training of young devotees in the proper spirit? Yeah, train them in the proper spirit. do it. Any specific ideas? I mean, it's any suggestions? It's a very wide topic. You train them to be pure devotees of Krishna. It's also very important, like I was saying in the first session about how when Prabhupada was here, devotees were in the Nishkam mood, but then later they became more like the Sakam mood. And Sankirtan Prabhu was discussing with me about that later. Now, actually, it wasn't that Prabhupada was just pushing. It was that he was just pushing Nishkam, but at the same time he wanted to establish Varnashram Dharma. Now, it's not that a devotee who gets married and gets involved in marriage means family life, social life, economic life, all these different things, which generally they tend to slow down our spiritual advancement. So it's not that this is necessarily Sakam Bhakti. I should have maybe explained that a little better, a little further. That one can be a Nishkam Bhakta in the Grihastha ashram also. That means that his object is to become a fully pure devotee. But at the same time, he's working with his material desires rather than trying to fully renounce them when he's not spiritually strong enough to do so. So it's not necessarily that a Grihastha devotee who has, as Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur called it, a license for sense gratification. That doesn't mean that he's Sakam in the sense that Sakam means that one is cultivating material desires. Rather, one may be Nishkam in the sense that it's also mentioned in Bhagavatam, that one is not just suppressing material desires, but indulging them in a very limited manner, and that also dovetailed in Krishna consciousness. But he's not cultivating the sense that I am the enjoyer of this material world and Krishna is there to help me do so. But he's cultivating the sense that I have to surrender to Krishna. But what often happens is, if we don't have a strong enough atmosphere, or we don't have proper guidance, then devotees who were in a Nishkam mood, they can go, when they're especially when they're in family life, they can go not just from the platform of dovetailing our materialistic propensities in Krishna service, but actually take up a materialistic outlook on life, an enjoying mood. So devotees should be trained in the mood of pure devotion, but also pragmatically we should see that when new devotees new devotees means young men and women, starting from age 8 practically or whatever, and many come in teenage years or college years, and then there are others who come at all ages. So those who are coming young before they've found their direction in life, so what they're going to do with their life, then these critics of sects or cults, they say that you're taking young people and you're brainwashing them. So of course we don't subscribe to such theories, but at the same time we should be realistic enough to give them, people who are coming, some vision that, alright, because often they're young and naively idealistic, and they think, well, I'll just live in the temple all the life, and the temple will look after me, and this and that, even if I get married or whatever. Maybe often I won't get married, but then later on they find that, well, maybe it's better later on, maybe it's better that I do get married, because I'm not strong enough to maintain the mode of total renunciation. So it would be good to prepare devotees for that, mentally and practically also. Practically, well, some recommend that, well, you finish your college education, so at least you could get some kind of a job later. That's one approach. I'm not much in favor of that approach. Often it's good because people often they want to join a temple because it's more out of frustration with their college life than out of an actual strong desire to surrender to Krishna. So that may be there. We have to see each individual case. At the same time, a very pressing need is to establish our devotees' own economic solutions, rather than having to go back to the slaughterhouse society, which destroys your spiritual aptitude. I met a Gurukuli boy who was never in book distribution after many years in Gurukul. Example. No, it's just a comment. Okay, anything else? If not, then we'll finish it.
Pass it way over there.
This Gamcha says, Allah Dan, the gift of Allah. People are religious.
Hare Krishna. I wanted to ask that if we know that we are giving to our institution, but the money is not going to be utilized properly, or maybe misutilized, is it still right to give? Does it mean that we are giving in the mode of ignorance?
You want to give me back the mic?
Yeah, and one more question. And this is my first time that I have ever had so much interaction with other devotees. And I found that there's a big divide. This is my first time. There's a big divide between devotees in India and devotees in other countries. Indian devotees don't trust people from outside. And people who are from other countries, I find some of them, not all, but some of them are very rude to Indian people. This is what I've seen and heard. And I want to know, if we are international, we are an international society, shouldn't there be more interaction between people from different countries?
Should we give money to ISKCON if we know it's going to get misused? Well, I wouldn't. But you can give into some. I mean, it's not that every part of ISKCON. I mean, there may be certain persons who you don't trust, but give to someone who you do trust. It's good to give, but give where you trust. Or better, try to get some systems in place that it doesn't get misused. Now, racialism in ISKCON goes very deep, doesn't it? I've heard in America that I don't know what they're called because they changed the name every. They used to be Negroes, and then they were blacks, and then they were. Well, now they're Afro-Americans. They keep on changing the name because Negro was considered a bad word, and then they changed to black, and then that became a bad. It's just like Mahatma Gandhi, the outcasts, he called them Harijan, and then Harijan is a very elevated term, and then it became a bad term because it became applied to the Harijans, Chandalas and so on. So apparently they're directly, indirectly, they're subject to racial discrimination. And it's there in India also, Western devotees and Indian devotees. It's very petty-minded, actually, isn't it? Very small-minded. What can I say? It's Dehatma Buddhi. It's identification with the body. Shouldn't there be more interaction? Well, I'm all for it. Prabhupada was for it. He wanted especially Western devotees to come to India and spend time here so they can... See, many Western devotees, they just see, it's so dirty, and dirty, and there's so many people, and so many mosquitoes, and often also, I'm afraid that some of our devotees, they read more the newspapers than they do the Bhagavad Gita. And in the West, it's like, in the Western media, India is just, it's a hopeless, useless country. And this is actually a very serious price. It goes much deeper than this, because Prabhupada was promoting Vedic culture, Vaishnava culture, which actually means Indian culture. Indian culture, you have to separate the good things from the bad. Sai Baba is also part of Indian culture, and so is the Bollywood movies, the Hindi movies. But that is not the spiritual culture. So you have to be intelligent enough to sort that out. But actually, Prabhupada wanted to promote this Indian culture, which is based on Vaikuntha culture. Some of our devotees in India, they don't manifest that properly, or sometimes because our Western devotees, they, sorry if I sound like an Indian talking about Western devotees, but sometimes, they behave with this kind of mlecha attitude that, we're Westerners and these Indians are all useless. And then the Indian devotees react also that, who the hell are these people anyway? So then it goes on from there. So racialism is ridiculous. It really means that we're still in the bodily concept of life. We'll find among Western devotees some. It's everywhere. Blanket statements about anyone or anything is not. It's dangerous. It's meaningless. Just if we say all Western devotees are bad, it's nonsense. All Western devotees are highly elevated Paramahamsas. It's wishful thinking. All Indian devotees are bad. It's nonsense. All Indian devotees are highly elevated Paramahamsas. It's wishful thinking. So that goes everywhere. All Gauriya Math devotees are bad. It's nonsense. All Gauriya Math devotees are highly elevated Paramahamsas. It's wishful thinking. So we should judge individuals for what they are. And our basic approach is to know the peace of each other and give respect to everyone, especially devotees. And anyway, what do you want to say? Why did you give her there? I would request Western devotees coming to India to try to, apart from just hanging out at the Coca-Cola bar and eating pizzas, of course, I'm not blaming that everyone's doing that. I wish they didn't have this, actually. Especially people coming. The people are coming to see the sadhus, and they see them sitting right as they come in the gate with bottles of Coca-Cola. There's something wrong there. So, but try to understand this culture. I've written a book actually called Glimpses of Traditional Indian Life, which, if you read that, it will help you to understand actually what is the great culture.
I have read that book, very good.
Okay, we're getting a recommendation for that book here. Please pass it. We all have to leave this room very soon. Please, if you feel so inclined, please write a little critique of this seminar. Give it to me. You can give it to me tomorrow also. Please pass it. Way back there.
Hare Krishna. No, I just wanted to make a comment because sometimes we suffer from an inferiority complex. That I've got an Indian body, that's why I'm being mistreated. Because there are a lot of other Indians, I would say, they just look at Western devotees and they say, wow, look at these people, they're so good. So sometimes I think, even as Indians, we suffer from a complex of, and it's wherever, even in Africa, the Africans feel, oh, they're third grade, and we Indians feel we are third grade. So it's not necessarily a Western disease.
Okay.
It's also our disease.
Yeah. Another very big and controversial subject is discrimination against women in our movement. I'm all for discrimination about women, not against. But there should be discrimination between men and women. Just like I was giving an example to a young lady the other night, that in America now in the universities they have co-sexual showers. That means there's no male shower and bathroom or female, the men and women. So, you want to be equal in all respects, then you just become animals, that's all. Anyway, it's a big subject, but Shastra and traditional society and Prabhupada have made discrimination and separation. And let's be frank, although many modern women and men don't like to hear it, actually it's in our movement don't like, but in a social role, women are supposed to be subordinate to men. That is what is written in Shastra. We're supposed to follow Shastra. We may not like it, so that's there also. But there's a whole thing going on in our movement in which they're trying to say that, well, we're not the body, therefore, we're all equal, but if I say that, okay, you're not the body, then go and embrace a tiger. And he's also not the body. So, even we're all spirit souls, but still there are different social roles. And particularly, women have a particular kind of body which does something which men can't do, and that's give birth to children. And the role that nature has given them is their natural role is to look after children. But if they're trying to be a Tamil president, or especially younger women who are bearing children, or a GBC, or a fighter jet pilot, or whatever, then the children don't get looked after. And then in modern America, they go to school, the kids go to school, pull out a gun and shoot 20 people dead. And why? So, I'm just saying very briefly my misogynistic views. You don't know what this word means? I learned it when I was branded on the internet as a misogynist. It means a woman hater. So, that's what you're called. Sometimes called a woman hater because you don't believe in free social roles for women. But as Prabhupada said, freedom for women means they're cheated by the men. Because the men don't take responsibility. They enjoy the women and they leave them. Have fun. See you later. Not much, a lot later. And you keep the baby. You keep the baby and look after them. So yes, I'm against equal rights. Equal rights, spiritual rights, and equal opportunities spiritually, but different social roles for the sober maintenance of society. And yes, there may be faults within that, but women may be exploited. It is the nature of the material world that whoever has a dominant position, they tend to exploit. That's what this whole seminar has practically been about. But there should be checks and balances to check that. There should be checks and balances to check that, but then it's not that we can invent a better system than that given by Krishna. Krishna gave the Varnashram system, which is the best system to regulate an imperfect world. So if there are imperfections, that doesn't mean that Krishna was wrong, but that we are not following the system as well as we should. So it is a very difficult world we live in, but we have to try to. Prabhupada wanted to implement the Vedic culture so that we could live as peacefully as possible within this material world and make progress in Krishna consciousness. So that is a basic. Prabhupada spoke about this a lot. He talked about this. There's one lecture he called the psychology of chastity, how girls should be married at a young age, and so many things. But we don't have time now because we have to leave. Right? Jettobe. Alright, we'll go. Hare Krishna.